Hi everyone, this is Mary and welcome to Super Skills for Grownups. In our skill building section today, we're going to be talking about part 2 of scissor skills. But before we do that, I'd like to talk a little bit about a certain type of book for young children called a participatory book. So aren't all books participatory books? Yes, in that the reader or listener has to take in the information from the book, process it, and then react to it. And even more so when you read aloud to a child, you're participating as the reader, the child is listening and reacting, and you are hopefully discussing the characters, the plot, maybe the setting, the illustrations along the way while you're reading. So there's lots of participation going on. A participatory book is a book that makes that sharing and participation more explicit. It invites the reader to solve a problem in the pages. It might explicitly ask them questions it wants them to answer, or it involves them to interact with the book in some way. So I brought some of my favorites today to talk about. The first one is called Dear Zoo. It's a classic. It's written by Rod Campbell. Children seem to universally enjoy it. And the setup for it, this one is a pop-up book. There are board book versions of it. There are sort of lift the flap book versions. This is a pop-up version. The setup is that the person who's speaking has written the letter to the zoo to ask them to send him a pet. I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me now usually at this point, I sort of talk about the picture. And I said, well, what did the zoo send? It's in a great big crate. It says very heavy, and it's from the zoo. What might that be that the zoo would send that's very heavy? And we think about that a little bit, and the child might make some guesses, and then we reveal that it's an elephant. Okay? And the reader says, he was too big, so I sent him back. The next page, so they sent me and we have another crate. And we see that pet, he was too tall, so I sent him back. So then we think, well, what could the zoo send that would be too tall? And we think about that a little bit and make some guesses, and then the child can lift the flap, and we see that it's a giraffe. And we think he might not be such a good pet either. So we move on throughout the book. There's lots of other zoo animals to guess until finally we get to the perfect pet which the zoo decides to send. So this is a book that young kids really have fun with, and as a pop-up book or a lift the flap book, we don't tend to have those in the library because they're very easily damaged and have to be replaced often. But it is the kind of book that you can enjoy with your kids at home. Okay? And we do have lots of other types of participatory books at the library. The second one is also universally enjoyed by young children, and we use this one for story times a lot. It's called From Head to Toe by Eric Carle. It's another animal book and basically invites the child to impersonate a bunch of animals from their head to their toe. And we start with the penguin. I'm a penguin and I turn my head. Can you do it? And we talk a little bit about how do penguins move. They turn their head kind of stiffly, and we all do it. And then the child says, I can do it. Okay. And we're going to move from the head down to the neck, and here's our friend the giraffe again. I'm a giraffe and I bend my neck. Can you do it? And we all bend our necks. I can do it. So again, we move through lots of other zoo animals. We can talk about not only the actions of the animals, but the colors of the animals, differences and similarities between the animals. So there's a lot that this book calls upon in terms of participation. It's a fun book. For a group, it's fun one-on-one. Okay? Other types of participatory books ask questions. And this is one of them that does. It's got a series of kind of really like riddles. It's called Clothesline Clues to Jobs People Do. And this is one of a series of Clothesline Clues books, and this one focuses on occupations and community helpers. It's written by Katherine Heiling and Deborah Hembrook, and the illustrations were done by Andy Robert Davies. And this also is fun one-on-one or fun with a group. Look at the clotheslines and see every clue. Who uses these things for the jobs that they do? Yeah. And here's our first clue. Uniform and cap, an invite for you. Big bag of letters, what job does she do? Okay. And we might think about that and talk about it a little bit. And we'll have some guesses. And then we'll turn the page and see she is the mail carrier. Okay, and the book goes on to talk about lots of different professions. It's educational, and it's also kind of interesting and fun, and everybody loves a good riddle. So that's another form of a participation book. The last one I'm going to talk about actually asks the listener to interact and touch the book and participate by reaching out and doing an action that involves the book. This is Tap the Magic Tree by Christy Matheson. And it takes us through the 4 seasons by focusing on one tree. It starts out, there's magic in this bare brown tree. Tap it once, turn the page to see. So the child will actually tap the tree. We'll turn the page, and what has happened? A leaf has appeared. Tap again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the child will tap 2, 3, 4. Now tap again, even more. Okay, so those 5 taps total so far have resulted in 5 leaves on the tree. And we tap again, even more times, we get even more leaves. So the child's going to be asked to rub the tree to make it warmer, do various other actions to get the tree through all 4 seasons of the year. And this too is a fun way to bring the child really literally into the book, to touch it and to make things happen when you turn the page. So that's a certain type of book that really is a great way to increase participation from your child, increase reactions, and get them motivated and enjoying interacting with books. We're going to talk about scissor skills next. On to cutting. If you'd like to review part 1 of cutting, that is still on our YouTube page and also in the video section of our Facebook page. But to review, remember that there's several different stages in cutting, and last time we talked about snipping, which is just one little open and shut of the scissors, and fringing, which is a series of one little open and shuts of the scissors along the edge of a paper to make a fringe. Okay, so remember, get a child-sized scissors with a blunt edge, a rounded edge, and if your child has a preference for their left hand, please get them a left-handed scissors. It'll be much easier for them. Okay, and remember, we had put a little sticker on the thumbnail to remind the child to keep thumbs up. You can also just draw a little smiley face or flower or something on there too. Thumb goes in the upper hole, index and middle finger go in the lower hole, and the ring finger and the pinky are tucked away. So that is how the child should hold the scissors. And open and shut, the arm should be down against, so that they're not raising their elbow and flipping that thumb down. So arms kind of against the body, and they've done some snipping and some fringing and mastered those. And cutting is a skill that proceeds in stages, and your child should master one stage before moving on to the next. And it doesn't happen right away. They might be fringing and snipping for quite a while before they move on to cutting. When they are ready to move on to cutting, remember they're going to hold the paper also with thumbs up, and they're going to move from just fringing along the edge to actually cutting a strip of paper, just a freestyle strip. Okay? And when they do that, they're going to learn that they not only have to move the scissors, they're going to move the paper closer to them. Okay? When they cut. Right? And that's kind of a complicated thing for children to learn. It's involving 2 hands doing 2 different things, bilateral coordination, and it's a skill that we do kind of instinctively, but that when you're just starting out, you have to kind of learn it, and it takes a little while. So have your child cut just strips of paper. If they get tired with all that open and shut, you can have them, remember to just have them do lots of exercises that strengthen their hand. Have them do some lacing, have them do some activities with tongs or tweezers or droppers. There's a lot of the skills that we've practiced will strengthen their hands and also help them get comfortable with tucking these 2 fingers away on the ulnar side of their hand and using their 3 executive digits. So a lot of those other exercises we've done will help them, as will just more practice in cutting. So once they've gotten pretty competent at cutting strips, then you can draw some lines for them to cut along. Okay? And I've just kind of combined them on one sheet, but you can do sheet after sheet of, let's just start with straight lines. Do their best to cut along the line. Again, they're going to have to hold the paper, thumbs up, and the paper will do some moving as well as the scissors. Okay? And also curves and zigzags are important for them to practice on. They're going to learn that when they cut curves and zigzags, they're going to have to move the paper even more than just towards them. They will have to kind of shift it around. They may have the impulse to bring that scissors arm up and have that do the moving instead of the paper. That's not a very viable way to cut shapes. So remind them that they need to move the paper, not so much the scissors. Okay? Once they've mastered cutting first straight lines and then the zigzags and the curves, and again, they can do this stage for quite a while, then you can move on to shapes. Okay? Just draw some shapes, some I just did a crescent moon, a circle, a rectangle, and a square, and a diamond. And I would do the rounded shapes first because those will be easier. Okay, and again, they're going to cut a circle out. They're going to learn they're going to need to move that paper around at the same time that they're cutting, and that is 2 different hands doing 2 different things. That will take a while to master. Okay, after they've got the round shapes, then you can try the square shapes with the right angles. Those corners are going to be a little bit tricky too, and again, it just takes a little bit of practice. Okay, and there's all kinds of, I came up with just a real sort of quick little way to combine this cutting into a craft. This is a rocket ship, in case you can't tell. It's got some fringe on the bottom, it's got some circles, a triangle, and some rectangles, and it's just glued on. So you can draw them some shapes and ask them to combine them in various ways. They can cut them out. You can give them a little direction and say, do you think this could build a rocket ship? Or you can have shapes to build a cityscape. You can make different kinds of animals out of different shapes. You can make a house. Whatever you'd like. The basic geometric shapes will give them lots of practice in cutting, and then their glue stick is also good hand-eye coordination and good dexterity practice and strengthening practice. So the gluing part of it's good too. So that is scissor skills. Like I said, as the child moves along, it gets a little more complicated in terms of what they're going to need. They're going to need to build up strength to cut more than a snip. They're going to need to work on bilateral coordination, to have both hands doing activities that help them cut. And also something called visual planning, which is that they see that line they're going to need to cut. They need to sort of make a plan for it very quickly and then execute the plan. So there are a lot of skills involved in your learning to use scissors. Once they master a stage, they can move along to the next, and they can practice as long as they want at each stage, until they're ready to move on. And practicing with the scissors will help them learn to hold a pencil properly too someday, and we'll be working on that in the coming weeks as well. Thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed learning about how to deconstruct scissor skills, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.